Welcome to 365 Christian Men, where every day we aim to inspire and encourage with real-life stories about men. August 9th, Franz Jagerstatter. Franz Jagerstatter started out like your average wild kid. As a teenager, he fathered a child out of wedlock, led a motorcycle gang, and got arrested for street fighting. But when he met the woman he soon married, she introduced him to Jesus, prayed with him, and helped him to grow in his faith. Before long, Jagerstatter was all in for Jesus Christ, which, by the way, put him at odds with the Nazis. On this date, in 1943, Jagerstatter was executed by guillotine.
Sometimes it's better to lose your head than to lose your integrity. In 1938, German troops marched into Austria, took over, and it legally became part of the Third Reich. They held a vote to determine whether Austria would adopt the Nazi leadership, and more than 99% of the population approved. The church, having seen what happened to clergy who disagreed with the Germans, took the position that it was the duty of all Austrians to obey legitimate authorities. And the entire village of St. Radegund voted in favor of the Nazis, except for one man. Franz Jagerstatter believed that Christianity and Nazism were completely incompatible, like oil and water, or good and evil. The thought of believing your country would take the place of believing in God was absurd. In about 5 years, he was drafted, but he refused to enter the war and fight for Hitler. Franz swore that it was impossible to be a good Catholic and a true Nazi. His bishop, who believed as Franz did, but didn't want to face the consequences, confronted Franz and said it was not his place to decide whether the war was righteous or unrighteous, and he told Franz that his duty was to serve. Franz wrote to the bishop, "If the church stays silent in the face of what is happening, what difference would it make if no church were ever opened again? But if Franz remained silent and turned his back on God, that would make a huge difference. All the difference for eternity. The day of consequence was approaching." First, Franz offered to serve as a medic and to care for fallen soldiers, but the offer was denied. So Franz refused to take the oath to Hitler and declared himself as a conscientious objector. His line in the sand had been drawn, and he wouldn't cross it. German military authorities immediately arrested Franz and imprisoned him in the same prison that was holding Dietrich Bonhoeffer. While awaiting trial, Franz learned that 1 year earlier, an Austrian priest by the name of Franz Reinisch had been a conscientious objector on the same grounds and was executed. Franz was deeply impacted by this, but he realized he could change nothing in world affairs. Nonetheless, he wanted to at least be a sign that not everyone would let themselves be carried away with the tide. 8 months later, he was found guilty of undermining military morale and was executed by guillotine. This was not the first time something like this had happened. In the book of Acts, we read a similar account when the apostles stood up to the governing authorities of their day. Acts 5:25 through 29 says this, "And someone came and told them, 'Look, the men whom you put in prison are standing in the temple and teaching the people.' Then the captain with the officers went and brought them, but not by force, for they were afraid of being stoned by the people. And when they had brought them, they set them before the council. And the high priest questioned them, saying, 'We strictly charge you not to teach in this name, yet here you have filled Jerusalem with your teaching, and you intend to bring this man's blood upon us.' But Peter and the apostles answered, 'We must obey God rather than men.'" Are there times when you are challenged to stand for God in the face of evil? Sometimes it's better to lose your head than to lose your integrity.
Thank you for listening to today's story. Every day of the year, our hope is to inspire you with real-life stories of faithful men who have gone before us. Hebrews 12:1 says, "Therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sin that so easily ensnares us. Let us run with endurance the race that is set before us." Join us tomorrow for another story at 365christianmen.com.